All right, post game now. Alabama winner at South Carolina. Hey, I didn't landmine somebody. In last night's post show after Auburn, you put pressure on me. You said, "Hey, what's the score going to be?" And I said, "I think Alabama wins by 10 or 11." I didn't even know the line at the time, and a little bit more comfortable than that for Alabama. Welcome in. This is the post game reaction, the basketball show from the next round. She's Taylor Corn. I'm Jim Dunaway. Little T. Enjoyment level of that game, 1 to 10, felt like about a 6. Wasn't like fun basketball game to watch. It was pretty much a 15-point game and not a lot of fluidity to it in most of it.
I agree. It felt a lot like the Auburn Missouri game to me, where it was just kind of like bleh. No one played great.
Yeah,
And in that game, Auburn walked away with the win. Alabama got a win by 20 points, which is great, but it just wasn't clean. And like you said, it wasn't very exciting.
yeah. I think we're going to experience that a little with Auburn, a little with Alabama this year. We're going to have some games. Auburn goes and plays South Carolina this weekend, where it's just going to be, they're so good that it's just going to be one of those blah games. I've got a sheet of comments I got to get here. We want your comments there, and would love to hear from those. We'll get to that. But give me an overview first off, Little T, as you watch this game tonight. Alabama easily wins at South Carolina. Both Alabama and Auburn unbeaten in the league as we head to the weekend. Give me your initial thought on what Alabama did tonight in Columbia.
What stood out to me the most was the fact that Alabama had 39 bench points and South Carolina had 4.
Yeah,
At one point, I think with 3 or so minutes left in the game, it was a 30-0 split, and that is crazy. I know that one of South Carolina's veteran players was out with an injury, or not, I guess not injury, a medical issue, a blood clot. So I think that impacted their game a little bit, but there was never hesitation for Alabama. The first half, Mark Sears looked like himself again. He hasn't by any means had a bad season so far, but last year that was all you were hearing about was Mark Sears, Mark Sears, Mark Sears. And I feel like he's been a little quiet this year. I mean, he's had a number of 20-point games, and that might just be because of how much depth there is on this roster. But the first half, he had 16 points in the first half. I believe that's correct. Yeah, 16 points in the first half. And he just started to look like the Mark Sears from last season again.
yeah, and that was huge to get that start. 4 from 3, and he had 16. Smutt's right. In this league this year, there's no such thing as a boring 20-point win. Um, it's just it's such a magical, and we keep saying this, potential of a basketball season. You almost want every night to be this joyous basketball celebration. We have spectacular things happen in great games, and I only meant the fact that the game never felt like it was in jeopardy, which is a good thing. If you're an Alabama fan, you're
Right.
watching this tonight, you would love for them all to be that way. 88-68, Alabama wins it. Here was my initial thought, and then run through some comments, and then we'll work our way through the post game here. Brought to you by our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag, promo code next round. Go sign up there and enjoy the wagering of the basketball season. Also, roback.com, TNR20. My first thought when Nick Pringle, former Alabama player, got the dunk off the start of the game to score the first 2 points of the game, and he sort of did it over Cliff. I was like, oh no, that if Nick Pringle goes off tonight and Cliff doesn't have a good game, there'll be a lot of conversations. Nick Pringle would probably say, "You wanted him instead of me. Look what you got."
Right. Right.
But that settled in. That settled in, and Cliff ended up going a cool 5 of 7, 5 rebounds. Um, I don't think Cliff's caught up with the pace of the way Nate Oates likes to play yet. I'd love your thoughts on that. How can I say this nicely? Because I'm glad he's on the team, and it's important for him and Sherelle to be there. But when they're there, he doesn't he doesn't flow like the other 8 guys who come into the game. Grant Nelson's a big body, Stevenson's a big body, but they flow in the offense. Cliff's a true 5, and he doesn't flow with the way Nate Oates likes to flow. I guess it's more Bediako like from a couple of years ago, but I felt like Bediako had a little bit more flow to it. But Cliff's going to catch up. He's getting there and had 10 points tonight. My other part you brought up, Mark Sears, when you can go out on the road and start off with 16 first half points and 4-4, that's a big deal. One more negative. I don't want to be the negative. It's just, I used to tell this when I would critique people in television. They would always ask for some help, the young broadcasters. And I would say, listen, man, we could sit here and I could go 2 days of telling you everything you do right. Let's just point out a couple of things you got to get better at to make you great.
Right.
Alabama missed 10 free throws tonight. 10 of them. They were 10 of 20 from the free
Yeah.
throw line. And it didn't matter tonight. But I have a feeling that somewhere in some of these games, missing those free throws, and they have not been a great free throw shooting team this year. But tonight, 10 of 20, you can't give up 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 free throws. You may need those points in some of the tight games this year. So those are my two thoughts. Let's get to the chat room and see what you guys have to say post game tonight after Alabama's win over South Carolina. Bama now 13-2, 2-0 in conference play. South Carolina drops to 0-2 in SEC play. What do we have, Little T?
Tyler, this is based off of what you just said, or kind of along the same lines. Free throw is going to cost this team something important. Landmine believer, Oates is fed up with us getting big leads and playing sloppy. Happened
Yeah.
all year long.
Did you see that part of the game? I know you did because you were watching it. But from about 17 minutes to about 13:40 in the second half, he got so pissed off at the starters that he had these people on the court. He had Millette, Youngblood, Diabate, Reed, and Aiden Holloway. And in that stretch, Aiden Holloway scored 9 points, 7 of them by himself consecutively. He went 7 straight, ended up with 9 points in that little stretch where, you hate to say backups in the game or twos or the second layer, but he got so mad at the defensive effort that the other guys were putting forth that he did 5 people substitution, set Mark Sears and Grant Nelson and all the guys down and threw those guys out there. And not only did they score with Holloway, they played great, energetic defense. Millette was getting after it. Man, Reed can play defense. Youngblood can play defense. But that Mo Diabate, that guy has no problem violating your personal space. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. And that there was a stat on the broadcast that was mentioned that Mark Sears sat, which along with the group of starters that you were just mentioning, for 6 minutes. And when they said Mark Sears has been on the bench for 6 minutes, I was like, has he ever been on the bench for 6 minutes straight? Because last year I feel like he was playing nearly 40 minutes a game. I mean, he rarely came out. But when I think that this is the same thing that you're talking about. The whistle blew and Nate Oates was at midcourt before you could
Oh,
blink. And
oh.
he was pissed.
Yeah, a couple
Pissed.
of times. A couple of times tonight, he was really mad at. I don't know if it was the defensive effort, the communication, combination of both. Next time I see him, I'll ask him. But it had to do with one or both of those things. And he said last year to us on microphone when you were in Spokane and when we were in Phoenix and through the Sweet 16 as well, and a couple of times in the hallway when I was just talking to him. He said, I will never go through a season again this bad defensively. And he does not want to start creeping towards the 100s again. And Paul, one of our great viewers and listeners, points out that Alabama's defensive numbers would be even higher if it wasn't for that horrendous effort they put on at North Dakota when they were up there, when they won 97-90. If you take that out, Alabama's actually like a top 30 defense in the country. So the defense is better, and Nate Oates doesn't want it to slip back. That's why he is chewing butt when it comes to effort and communication on the defensive end of the floor.
There's a lot of talk about free throws
Oh,
or the lack of made free throws. Free throw, landmine believer, free throw shooting is awful.
yeah.
Pretty bad when Pringle has a better free throw percentage than our entire team.
Yeah, missed 5 free throws in the 2-point loss to Oregon. I was just going back to look at the 2 losses. And then at Purdue, I mean, you lost the game by 9. I don't know if it was really that close, but I remember being bad free throw. No, 13 or 15 that night. So they shot well. So the two losses, the free throws didn't cost them. But I'm like everybody in the chat, little T. I mean, there was 10 free points right there. You're not going to make them all, but let's go 17 of 20. Let's go 16 of 20, and make some free throws there because it will cost you at some point.
Seems like they are still trying to create continuity, but they seem so much more intense on defense. Pringle just doesn't bring a steady emotional presence. When I read this, I thought of one thing, and that was, I believe in Spokane, Nick Pringle was on the bench. He had just gotten pulled for, I think it was a mistake. He was probably getting an earful from the coaching staff and slammed a clipboard on the ground, broke it. And I think that that's what is being talked about here. I loved Nick Pringle last year. I mean, not basketball wise, he was very great for us, entertainment wise, great personality
Right.
in interviews. But it does take time to mesh. And this team has a lot of freshmen playing, they have transfers playing. So it's not like the majority of this team was together last year. There are some very big pieces of the team that were on this roster last year. Two of the most important players on the team, Mark Sears and Grant Nelson. But then you have a lot of additions from a lot of different places, whether it's high school or transfer portal guys, and it's going to take time for everyone to mesh. And basketball's a long season. There are a lot of games to be played, so I'm sure they're still trying to mesh and get comfortable with each other, but that's part of it.
Yeah, I will tell you this: there were 9 Alabama players that took 3 or more shots tonight, and it wasn't like it was ever a play the bench type of night. Those guys were in rotation, so they played. I don't have the minutes played in front of me because my app is showing zeros for everybody on both sides. I just believe that they're going to play a lot of people, just like we discussed with Auburn last night. Here's another thing, and I'd love to know what the chat room thinks about this, little T. Early in the game and at times throughout the season so far, it appears that they choose the absolute most difficult path to pass the basketball, like one leg falling out of bounds, under the rim. You've only got seconds to throw it to somebody, and you try to throw it
Yeah,
between 3 guys to somebody. I'm like, isn't there an easier pass sooner than right there at that moment? Sometimes their turnovers come at what seems to be let's try the most difficult pass we can in this trip down the floor and see if we can make it happen. I just wish the passing was a little bit more fluid at times, but you can't complain about a 20-point win on the road in the SEC, and you
right.
can't complain about where this team has started so far. But at times, I'm like, guys, you're too good. Let's just make it easier. Let's make it easier on yourself.
Okay, there's a couple comments. I lost it. Um, Michael said Aiden Holloway is a great changeup due to his speed and burst of offense. Mr. B, Aiden Holloway was a great pickup by the Tide. Brooks worked out good for Auburn and Aiden.
Yeah.
One thing that I remember we talked about, we were at Talladega last year, and we were sitting in the Johnson RV. That was our kind of home base that day when we were out there doing content. And the news broke that Aiden had entered the transfer portal, but the news broke that he was going to Alabama. And one of the things that you said was this could be a positive for both sides of both sides of this situation. Auburn could be better off without him, and Aiden could be better off, somewhere else. And I do think that that's what's happened. I don't think that there's a gap where he left at Auburn, and I think that him personally, he's been more successful this season at Alabama. So I do think that it was a mutually beneficial transaction, if that's what we want to call it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it happens sometimes in professional sports when you get a trade and both teams benefit. And it definitely has worked out for Aiden. I mean, tonight he was 5 of 7 from the floor. He had that one spot he got to several times there and made a great fall away shot, 1 of 2 from 3. He was 2 of 2 from the free throw line. Mark Sears was 4 of 5. So that means the rest of the team was 4 of 13 from the free throw line. That's even worse. That even makes you take Sears and Aiden away, it makes everyone else seem worse at free throw shooting. Hey, Nate Oates is speaking right now, so we will give you some of his comments of their some of the things he says from the podium as we continue with the post game chat. Alabama winning it 88-68. Jim Dunaway, that is Taylor Korn. We've got your basketball coverage all last year. This is year 2 of this. Our podcast, The Basketball Show, drops 2 times a week. You can get it at Spotify, soon to be on Apple, on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook page, all of our usual platforms. We drop them on Monday morning, Sunday night, Monday morning, and then we drop it on Thursday night, Friday morning, so you can have them before the next big game and the reaction. And we oftentimes take mailbag questions, so make sure you stay on our social media platforms, specifically on Twitter at Next Round Live, also on Instagram and Facebook, and feed those questions throughout the year. Taylor and I having a lot of fun. We'll do episode number 3 tomorrow night or tomorrow afternoon and have that ready to go for you Friday before we continue SEC play with Alabama at Texas A&M and Auburn at South Carolina. Little T, what do we have next? And before you go to the next question, I want to ask you your thought of Mo Diabate when you watch him play from Queens, New York. He's not a guy that's gonna scare you, I think, scoring, though tonight he had 7, 3 or 4 from the floor. But when you see somebody play defense like that, now we all know you're a big Auburn grad, and your team is built on great team defense. When you see Mo Diabate come into the game and get after somebody, how do you respect his game? You respect it a lot, I expect.
Tremendously, tremendously. I know blue collar basketball is, Alabama's mantra, but I feel like that's a great description of the way that he plays. He gets after it. He gets in there and he gets after it. And like you said, he might not always be the biggest threat points wise, but he can play defense. And he was actually one of the guys that stood out to me I think it was in the first half, but there was a span in this game where he had 5 points in 30 seconds. So he's showing ability to be able to score, which is kind of the cherry on top of his defensive efforts.
Yeah, he actually is. He does have a really good transition game for his size there. I really like Mo when he's in the game, and he did a great job tonight on their guy Colin Murray Boyles inside. Who's if South Carolina wins basketball game, it's supposed to go through CMB, and Mo Diabate was in his grill all night long. All right, what else do we have in the chat room? Love the start from Alabama. They were up 45-28, and it just sort of stayed there in the second half. It was like a cold front that just set over the arena. It just sat there and just dumped a lot of rain on the South Carolina folks tonight for a big Alabama win.
There's a lot of talk of Jaron Stevenson, and it's not necessarily positive. Landmine Believer said Jaron starting clogs everything up. You need to start Youngblood at 3 to open everything up. Youngblood I can't remember what game was the first that he returned from his injury, but he was hurt for, I believe, the majority of the offseason into the first few games of the season, a foot injury. Will Frouse, I agree. I don't think Jaron should start.
Uh,
And
I would say this. I mean, you're a former soccer star. I don't know if you ever had to come back from injury, but Chris was just talking about coming back from injury and really not being at game shape. We played the sound bite. I mean, as a former athlete, I played baseball. It's a different sport. It's not a running sport. It's a sprinting sport. You played a running sport, soccer. These guys play a running sport in basketball. If you are injured, you can only train, especially a foot injury, or ankle injury. You can only train so much the rest of your body. Talk to me about having to get back in game shape, running shape, to get that stamina back.
well, I think there's two different aspects to it. One of it's a mental aspect of, I don't want to call it PTSD because that's a little dramatic, I think. But once you get hurt, there's a lingering thought in the back of your mind of, okay, I tweaked my ankle. So does that change your play a little bit? Because you might be a little more hesitant when it comes to things that you would not hesitate about doing at all to begin with. And then the second part of it is physically. Conditioning is a massive part of this sport. You've got to be able to go. You've got to be able to go. So if it's an ankle injury, a foot injury, and you're not able to be 100%, that's going to negatively impact your ability to keep moving when you're on the court. On top of the fact that for however long you just sat for, you're not doing any conditioning when it's a lower body injury.
That's right. That's right. And he talked to Chris Stewart on Tide Talk this past week about, finally getting close to being back into game shape there. So that's interesting. Let's get some more comments from the chat room. This is the post game show. The same people that bring you the basketball show. We keep it simple. The post game show. We did it live after Auburn last night. I don't know exactly which game we'll go after this weekend. We'll decide that and let you know on our social media platform. But we appreciate your comments and being with us after this Alabama win tonight. Next few games, tougher schedule for Bama than it is for Auburn on the next three. But maybe Alabama can survive it. They'll start with a tough trip to College Station. That Texas A&M team is legit. I'm gonna check the scoreboard here while you pull up the next comment there.
I have a side note on the Jaron
Okay.
Stevenson comment that we were just talking about. At media days, at basketball media days, our question that we were asking the players was which one of your teammates is not getting enough hype or is not getting enough love during the off season. And Latrell Wrightsell was one of the players that was in Birmingham representing Alabama. And the player that he said was Jaron Stevenson. He said, I think he's the most slept on kid on our team right now. So they were seeing something this offseason that made Latrell say that. So that was just an interesting kind of sidebar.
Well,
Um,
I will tell you to your point there that you saw if you watched the entire broadcast, there was a moment where they showed Celtics exec, former Butler and Celtics head coach Brad Stevenson sitting next to Danny Ainge, who used to play for the Celtics, used to run the Celtics, who runs, I believe, the Jazz now. They were there watching with a lot of scouts the talent on the floor. And you may think, well, they're looking at Mark Sears. They are looking at Mark Sears. But I was told last year at the NBA pre-draft combine, Sears was there, and so was Stevenson as well. And Stevenson was a lot closer staying in the draft. He was getting a lot better feedback than Mark Sears was. So Stevenson was this close to staying in the draft last year. But I don't feel like he is playing to last year when he was a true freshman, a 17-year-old. True freshman.
17. All of the
He's
17-year-olds are in
if you're
Tuscaloosa.
17 in Tuscaloosa, man, and wearing crimson and white, you are good. But he was in school a year early. Should have still been a senior in high school last year. So this is technically his age-wise body clock freshman year. But I agree with the chat room. Last year he was more dynamic, and this year I don't know if he's pressing, just hasn't found a rhythm yet. He hasn't been able, in my opinion, to play up to um, last year's level yet. If it wasn't for Stevenson, I don't think you beat Clemson. I don't think you go to the Final Four. He was that good out in LA.
This is a question that I'm going to depend on you to answer if there is an answer right now. Um, David asked if Reitzel will come back for another year. He's out for the season with a Achilles
Yeah,
injury. I don't know what the status of his eligibility is.
yeah, absolutely. You get this year back because you've missed so much of it. I mean, it's pretty common if you get injured pre-conference, pre-New Year's Day, and it's an injury that wipes out the rest of your year. The NCAA grants another year almost automatic, and I don't say it's automatic, but and I don't know what Reitzel is in the roster anyway. But I talked to him at Coleman Coliseum. It was the South Dakota State game, I think, on his scooter, the game that Darian Reed missed. And I walked over and talked to both of them, wished them well, and talked to him about coming back. And the plan right now is he's going to come back and play a full year healthy. Helps him get his get his draft stock up a little bit. And he is a
Because he
guy,
missed
he's a cold blooded shooter. When he's on, he can end the game for you.
a decent amount of time closer to the end of the season last year. He had a concussion or a couple concussions, I think,
Yeah,
at the end of last season, right?
that's right. He had a couple during the year last year, and when Alabama got to the NCAA tournament,
Hmm.
I don't think he played in either two of the games you were at in
Yep.
Spokane, and I can't remember if he jumped in and started playing at the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, or if it wasn't until the Final Four, but eventually he did make it back into the lineup. My gut feeling, the chat room will know, my gut feeling was we didn't see him until the Final Four, but maybe he got back at the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. But I know he played in the Final Four at least, but he
That's
didn't
what.
early on in the tournament. He couldn't get out of he couldn't clear concussion protocol.
Yeah, because I remember the storyline of those first few games was the question of whether he would start or not, because I believe he was traveling with the team. Um, let's see. There was a good question.
David, by the way,
Oh,
says
or
love
comment.
love right cell, landmine believer, Final Four. He missed the North Carolina and Clemson game there at the Sweet 16 Elite Eight. That's the way I remembered it. That he did not play even in L.A., Spokane or L.A., but was back there for the Final Four.
Will, I just love Phylon. He's electric with the ball. My favorite player on the roster this year. I determined that very early on in the season. I love the kid.
You know, he's actually, I'm not going to know it because I posted it on my social media, but I got three people sent me. He is a rap track now. I sent it out earlier. In a rap, one guy says it was somebody who's singing with, I think, Little Baby.
Yes,
Uh,
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I don't think that that's correct because I saw it yesterday. I saw someone post it yesterday on Instagram, and I was like, "No way, this is crazy. Let me go to this," because I wasn't gonna go off the social media post that I saw because it wasn't from Lil Baby or whoever was featured in the song. It was from an Alabama account. So I was like, "Let me go find the lyrics from the actual song, and I'm gonna use it on the next round social media because that's cool." When I went and looked at the lyrics to the song, like the song lyrics from the artist, it said, let me try and find it, but I think that it just sounds like that.
well, the one I saw is it maybe Fernandez Menendez who's singing with Little Baby, or maybe he's just covering a Little Baby's playing in the background, and maybe he raps in his own line, but he does. It sounds like he says zero LeBaron Phylon.
Okay, maybe I watched a video. Hold on, because I looked it up on YouTube and I was like, I need to use this, and it said I can't remember. Okay, let's see. Oh wait, okay, maybe it is right. I could be wrong. I don't know. I looked at a uh
Don't be a hater. Don't be a hater.
no,
This the old guy came in with rap lyrics tonight, and you think I was wrong and I'm right. It's okay.
because I looked up the lyrics yesterday. I don't know. I need to find the video then, so I'm not about to play a YouTube video while we're on here.
Yeah.
Um,
You should know. I mean, Don Corn and I are close to the same age. We're the same generation. You know how cool Don Corn is. You know he knows rap lyrics. I know rap lyrics. Don't hate the game. Wait, don't hate the player, hate the game.
hate the game.
Whatever that saying is.
Maybe I don't know. Wait, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. The YouTube video that I or the YouTube video with the lyrics that I watched might have been wrong, and you might have been correct. But I did look into it last night because um I was gonna try and use it on social media, but that's beside the point. I love the kid. I hope it is his name. I hope he got name dropped
Yeah.
um in Lil
I,
Baby's latest hit.
I think he has an NBA future, and it would not be would surprise me if Brad Stevenson and Danny Ainge, the other scouts, were looking at him and Mark Sears and Grant Nelson and Phylon as well. I think Phylon has a future in the NBA at some point as well. A few more chat comments here as we wrap up post game with Alabama beating South Carolina. We do this a couple times a week on our basketball podcast, The Basketball Show. And then we are after Alabama and Auburn games. If they're split up like this, we'll do one every night. If they're on the same day, sometimes we'll do two shows, sometimes we'll do one show. You just have to stay with us. I was filling out a calendar through the rest of basketball season. We've got a total of 22 recorded episodes of the basketball show that we will do this year. That will take us, episode 22 will be on Selection Sunday. So we've got 20 more episodes to put in the can starting tomorrow as we move throughout the year. So I don't know how long it'll go after Selection Sunday, but we're with you all the way through Selection Sunday in the NCAA tournament. And Little T and I love us some college basketball, just like you guys do. We've become huge basketball fans, And we know you guys are too. That's why you're here with us watching. We appreciate you so much.
Jimmy said 48 points in the paint and only took 19 threes, made 8, outshot South Carolina, and went on the boards 36-33. And that's, I think, something that'll be very valuable to this team because Brown talked about this the other day on the next round. He said it's kind of a false narrative, but it's an old, tired narrative that Alabama lives and dies by the three. But they weren't super reliant on that tonight.
When you only shoot 19, that's not in Nate's window. You know, he has everything mapped out as a mathematician. He wants
Right.
to shoot more threes than 19. But sometimes the game dictates it where you get in and play at the rim. And that's where Alabama played most of the game in the paint around the rim tonight. And that I always love points in the paint. I think that's always a great stat. It's almost like to me, that's the rushing yards in the football comparison. Points in the paint, rushing yards. If you usually win rushing yards, that's a good sign. That shows me you're putting in the work. And 48-32 in points in the paint tonight, they put in the work on the boards against the Carolina Gamecocks.
DB King said rapping is definitely a part of your bracket punishment this year now, Jim. Okay, so I think that he's assuming that you lose the bracket challenge, it appears.
I've only lost it a couple of times, but I did lose it last year. And it's funny that I actually thought of the bracket challenge last night. Go check it out. Maybe Little T should send it out with this fact. Again,
Oh, yeah.
the little highlight fact. But last night, Tennessee started at Florida, number one Tennessee. They were 0-14 in the first half shooting from three. And then they didn't make their first three until 24. They were one of 24. And if you followed my bracket punishment, I had to make one 3-point shot in 5 different Division I basketball arenas. And I started at Neville Arena. You had to sneak in, break in, however you had to get in and not let anybody know we were there. So I was nervous, got in there, and I didn't make my first three till my 28th shot. So Tennessee was almost as bad last night as the number one team in the country shooting threes as I was inside Neville Arena, which I thought was the worst display of 3-point shooting ever.
I thought it was too, but apparently not. Winning on the road in the SEC is hard. So they say.
You were a lot nicer when I was missing all those shots last year. You didn't
Well,
say I thought it was horrible too. You were trying to
did you
keep me
think that
encouraged.
I mean, yes, I was trying to encourage you because we were already going to be in the car for like 15 hours that day traveling around the state. And I thought that you just already knew that it was not great.
It was not great.
I wasn't gonna kick you while you were down. Okay, we'll wrap up with this comment. Landmine Believer, we somehow moved up in KenPom defense up to 36. I believe before the game they were 44th.
Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds about right. So in that, well, I mean, you only allowed 68, right? So in the metrics and the numbers, you score 88, so your scoring probably went down, your average, because it seems like Alabama spits out 100-point games, and then
Right.
68, allowing only 68, that's going to make your defensive numbers go up. Now, does he mean we went up? Alabama. Does he mean that Alabama went up in as a team or just defensively?
Alabama
Uh,
was ninth. They're now ranked eighth,
yep.
and Kansas is ninth. Their offensive efficiency, they're ranked fourth, and then they're 37th in defensive efficiency. So as a team, they jumped one spot because I believe before this game that they were ninth.
I'll tell you this, man. You look at KenPom, and everybody loves KenPom. All the coaches, all the basketball uh, gurus, all the people that pronounce it tournament, they all love KenPom.
What?
And yeah, they're the Northern Real Basketball people. They don't call it
Me.
tournament. They call it tournament. Tournament.
Yeah.
When you get in the
My
tournament.
my my neck of the woods.
Yeah, old Michigan. That KenPom loves some Gonzaga, man. 12-4, and they're seventh in the country. I mean, I don't think you'd be seventh in the country and lose unless you're Alabama football, and lose that many games, and still be there. Alabama's got 2 losses and behind 4 loss Gonzaga in the stats. For those that are wondering, Duke, Auburn, Houston, who Alabama beat, Iowa State, Florida, Tennessee, Gonzaga, Alabama, Kansas, and Michigan. That's the top 10. Illinois, who did Auburn beat them too, or just Alabama? They're 11th. I know Auburn lost to Duke, who's won. Both of them beat Houston. Auburn also beat number 4 Iowa State. Florida, Tennessee still to come. Alabama will play. Illinois is on there. Alabama plays Texas A&M on Saturday. They're currently 14th, but currently trailing at Oklahoma. Keep an eye, little T. Do you have a sneaky team? Before we give out game balls, do you have a sneaky team in
I
the
think that
SEC that nobody's talking about?
Mississippi State,
Yeah, I just saw them 15th, man.
they're
That's
15th.
in the KenPom. Yeah.
Okay, so SEC teams are, according to KenPom, which is what a lot of people use, like you just said. We have, wait, let's see. Okay, Auburn's 2, Alabama's 8. Oh wait, this is not in order. Okay, I'm gonna have to do this another day because I
Yeah.
thought that this is in order. But there are a lot of teams in the top 15. We have Florida 5, Tennessee 6, uh, Texas A&M 14, Mississippi State 15. It's the top 15 is
Yeah.
SEC rankings.
Yeah, like Georgia, who beat Kentucky last night, is 38. Texas, who um, lost to Auburn last night, is 39th. Missouri, who's 45th down there. Arkansas is 48. Vandy's 51. I mean, you're 69 at LSU, but 51, almost in the, you got Vandy, who's almost in the top 50. All those teams that are ahead of you there. So yeah, the SEC had a great pre-conference, and so far it's going well in the conference. We'll let you guys go watch the other games, the late games here, including that Texas A&M game, who Alabama plays next. Auburn gets the South Carolina team that you just saw. But if you're looking ahead down the road, Alabama's got Ole Miss and Kentucky next week. Auburn's got sneaky who at home?
Mississippi State.
Mississippi State. That is a bring your chin strap game. That'll be a body bag game. A lot of people bumping into each other in that contest. All right. Thanks for being with us tonight. We'll do this all season long, and we appreciate you guys so much. She is Taylor Corn. Game ball Taylor, who do you give it to tonight?
Mark Sears, first half, Mark Sears.
First half, Mark Sears. He was so good in the first half. So you give it to first half, Mark Sears. I'm going to give it to. I'm going to give mine to, I'm going to go Mo Diabate, man. Come in, play a little defense, get on their guy and shut down Colin Murray Boyles. My game ball goes to him. And a tip of the cap to Ron Slay on the call tonight. I love it when he calls the game and when he's on our show. He brings the energy all the time. Love it
He
when he was
does.
saying, fight line, fight line, fight line. He kept saying that all night. Fight line, fight line, fight line.
Yes. Yes. I'm a fan of it.
I am
T-shirt, next
too.
T-shirt.
I am too. I got somebody who texted me and says, "Who is this guy calling the game? I can't stand him." And I was like, "It's Ron Slay. I love it." And he's like,
Yeah.
"He's not very professional." And I was
He's
like,
having fun. He's
I'm
having
tired of
fun.
professional, right?
Right.
Dickie V wasn't professional, and everyone loved Dickie V. I love me some Ron Slay.
It's
Fight
about
line, fight line, fight
entertainment.
line,
It's about
fight line, fight line,
entertainment.
fight line. Yep. All right, Taylor Corn. Have a good night. See you tomorrow at work. We're back 9 a.m. Central Time tomorrow on the next round. Goodbye, everybody.
See y'all.